Hello, and welcome to Austin Makani with What Matters podcast. My dear viewers, today I'm looking onto the innovation space, and when you look onto the innovation space in Tanzania, you'll all agree with me, there's no better person to talk to than Joe Manirakiza, working with the Funguo program at the UNDP. As easy as I would like this show to go, we're not discussing titles, we're looking onto the content because it's the content that matters. Joe, welcome to Austin Makani with What Matters podcast.
Thank you.
And delighted, from the first times that we met and engaged, it's only been on innovation. I do not know any other side of you other than innovation, which is good.
Maybe.
I learned in the process, and I stand guided, and I'm very delighted that I would say you brought me into the innovation space in Tanzania. But one of the earliest definitions of innovation that I learned was doing something differently. Is it still what it stands, that innovation is doing something differently?
Yeah, thanks Austin first of all for coming to Fungo office. We are delighted to host you. And yeah, maybe I would disagree with you because there are many more people that you can talk to about innovation in Tanzania. So I'm not the best. So let me just put that disclaimer out.
I will hold on to that.
No worries. Yeah, I can give you connection to so many that I can talk to about the innovation ecosystem in Tanzania who are probably more invested than I am. Innovation, it's defined in so many ways. I mean, you cannot get a standard definition of innovation. It depends on the space you're talking about. But generally, all the definition can agree on doing new things or doing things differently, whichever context you put it in. So that's still the common feature of innovation definition in America.
By the time, Joe, we moved from the Innovation Week to Funguo, it's over 7 years, I understand. And you'll agree with me, over the time, having conversed with the likes of Dr. Nungu, Kostek, Dr. Moses, yourself, and all other people in the network. And I stand to be corrected, Joe. Most of our very good, innovative ideas, I can name a few that you exposed me to. We had a good friend at Morogoro, the late, who came with the TV, The Rats.
Oh yeah, at SUA, yes.
Yes, at SUA, Sokoine University of Agriculture in Morogoro. Some of these brilliant, innovative ideas. Just that's one. There's another gentleman who came up with the innovative ideas to purify water. I think this was in
Nelson
Arusha.
Mandela. Yes.
Nelson Mandela Institute, and many other innovative ideas that we have in Tanzania. Why is it that Tanzania lags behind, and how far behind are we in terms of attracting investment in these innovations, and what ought to be done?
Well, Austin, that's a loaded question, to be honest. Yes, I think from the times of Human Development Innovation Fund, HDIF, which I actually started with when I got into the Tanzania innovation ecosystem from somewhere else. That basically when we met, I think that was almost 10 years ago actually. That was in 2014.
And
right?
you still think you do not qualify to that space? I said I would hold on to my response.
There were more
Yes.
people before me, because if you talk about the Dr. Nungus, the Dr. Mshindas and all that were there, the Jumane and all those. So there are more people who have been there in the innovation ecosystem for quite long. Yeah, so there has been quite a lot of evolution, because you gave some examples of some of the innovative ideas that we funded under HDIF, like the TB detective rat at Sokoine University of Agriculture, or the nanofilter at Nelson Mandela by Professor Ilonga. I wouldn't say that they haven't been able to attract funding, because it depends on how you look at it and the nature of that kind of innovations. Because some of them, like the nanofilter, has been featured widely globally, and we've got a lot of accolades and got some funding. So it will depend on the kind of funding we're talking about, right? And when you look at it, you ask the question about how Tanzania as a country are doing in terms of attracting investment into the innovation ecosystem of startups. Well, we tend to compare ourselves, which is not a bad thing, because we always have to start from a point of benchmark. So we can compare ourselves from where we came from, like you can compare it year to year. And we can also compare ourselves with our neighbors who would say that they are at the same level of the develop in terms of innovation ecosystem and be able to gauge how we are doing. I would say that we are not there yet, but we are not where we came from, right? So I think that's the safest way of putting it.
There's a progress.
There's a progress.
Okay.
But for people who are within the space, are we happy with the progress? I'm not sure whether most people that you talk to would say yes, that we are very happy. We are right. Because if you say we are happy with the progress, then you would just sit back and relax and we have fun with it. But we still have a long way to go. We are still lagging very far behind when it comes if you look at the reporting of funding that comes into the startups in Africa. We are still lagging very far behind the likes of Kenya, Nigeria, or Egypt, or Ghana, or South Africa. They are far ahead of us. We are also now kind of trailing behind some countries that you wouldn't have thought about, like the likes of Rwanda. There's a report that has just come up, I think actually last week, about the funding for tech startups in Tanzania. If you look at the numbers, I think for that are really depressing because we are trailing far behind even the likes of Rwanda. Well, you would say maybe not too depressing because you would say, okay, what are we doing about it? I think that's what matters the most. Right now, if you listen to the discussions going on, I think you can say that we can be a bit satisfied with the kind of engagement with the government, with the policymakers, compared to a few years ago. So there is a talk of adopting more progressive policies, which, if well implemented, are going to lead to more investment coming in. If you look at the broader investment landscape, now we have a new investment law, which now giving more incentives to both local investors and foreign investors. That's on the wider perspective. But discussions are now ongoing on how can we now focus on startups or early stage businesses rather than just looking at the bigger kind of, because we believe that's where innovation happens. Startups are the one that kind of come with innovative ideas that can be scaled faster. And if they can be scaled fast, they can be able to create more jobs that we need to see. Because that's actually what we're looking at. So like what actually could be the best way? So now we have players in the ecosystem that are actually pushing the agenda quite vigorously. You might have heard of Tanzania Startup Association. Probably you should actually think about meeting them. They are doing a great job in pushing for the startup policy, which we believe now, because that's now the discussion started, the government is behind it, it's going to be passed. So we believe if we engage widely, we get the right content into that, the right incentives are in there, then that could lead to a better place that can sustain funding flowing into the startup sector.
You did mention, John, thank you for your response. You did mention two key things. One, expansion, and two, job creation. And this is what I refer to. So investment that are put into the startups in Tanzania, nanofilters, was that called Apopo?
Apopo was the NGO behind these TB rats detected.
Excellent, yeah. So that innovation space and many more jobs that we can name countless. We'll mention a few in the course of this podcast, but we do not see now the jobs that emanate from this innovation. We do not see investment that is put to actually be able to scale up these innovations. The nanofilters, for example, if you go to Arusha itself, whereby it's led to the founding of the nanofilters. I'm not sure if they've covered all the districts in Arusha, not now to be able to take it to other places. We have similar problems in Dar es Salaam. Water is an issue across the country. Now, when I say funding to the innovation space, I mean that these brilliant ideas, they go out, but then have they consolidated themselves enough in the internal market to actually be able to go outside? This is what I refer to, funding into innovation and innovative ideas in Tanzania.
Well, it really depends. I think the example you've given about Nanfuita is a bit unique, right? Because innovative startups are about problem solving. So they say challenge, they design the business idea around it, then they implement it, they scale it, right? For nanofilter, when it started, it was meant for a certain particular problem. purifying water, drinking water, basically. Because the founder was born in a place where there is a lot of chloride within fluoride.
Yeah.
I'm not a scientist.
One of those.
Yeah, one of those. So it was about purifying that water. That's a geographical kind of specific challenge. So there could be a limit to how far they can expand.
Okay.
So, but there are other examples of startups in Tanzania that have actually grown and have actually been able to raise funding from overseas and all that. There are others that are trying to raise from the country. But I think what you're saying is like we should be able to see more of those, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And in terms of like the fight going to the creation of jobs, I think you should see there's a report by TSA, the status of startup ecosystem. They call it startup ecosystem support report, something status report. It's coming out for 2023. Like the preliminary highlights already show that there are like a number of jobs that are being created by startup actually increasing. Of course, the number of startups increase, of course, we're going to see that the jobs coming out will also increase. What I like about this is actually being able to build a case that if we actually invest more in startups, then we are going to see this kind of trend. We are going to see more jobs being created. Because in any case, who actually creates startups? They are young people, mostly. And young people are going to hire their fellow young people, right? If a young person sets up a company right now, they're not going to hire the likes of Austin or myself. They're going to
we're not young anymore. You
mean,
you are not. Like, I'm still so much young, Joe.
All right, fine.
Yes.
Good for you. But that's what I'm saying. And if you listen to policymakers, whenever they talk about development, all that, we all talk about jobs for young people, right? So what's the best way of creating jobs for young people other than supporting startups? Because we all know, I mean, then this is not going to change. Formal economy cannot create enough jobs for young people.
Right.
We have over 1 million young people entering the labor market every year. Can you guess how many formal jobs are created every year?
Maybe 1%.
Well, maybe, okay, you are too pessimistic. I'm more optimistic than that. So it's not more than 30%.
30%?
Yes.
Okay.
So you can imagine now 70% of the young people who enter the job market have nowhere to go. So if that keeps on compiling, like, you can think of like over 10 years what's going to happen, right? So what's the best way of averting that kind of crisis by having so many young people who are able, energetic, innovative, but they don't have where to take that energy? So if there could be anything to be done, let's enable them to create their own businesses. So that now touches on so many things. How do they create their own business? Of course, enabling environment has to be key. Enabling environment, then we have to talk about access to financing. Whatever way you define financing. But we also have to talk about the supporting innovation ecosystem, like business development services, or whatever you can do. So there are so many elements that various stakeholders actually working on that could now contribute towards that. And if you put the government aside, which is supposed to be putting enabling environment data for everyone to pay, there are so many people who are contributing to our country. And everyone who is not in government is basically doing whatever they can to contribute now to the government's effort. So which means kind of a concerted effort to make sure that at least we create a better environment for these young people to be able to create their own business and also create their own jobs. I think that's actually what matters.
Joe, you've highlighted in your response, and thank you very much for more insights, that we ought to look onto the enabling environment and the role that the government has to play towards ensuring the environment is conducive for innovations to thrive so that more jobs are created, more taxes collected, etc., more solutions solved, etc. But how would you now, at this juncture, describe the innovation space in Tanzania? How would you describe it? Is it conducive? Is it attractive? Does it bring more, brilliant and young minds into the space? Do they feel secure? Do they feel this is a place to be? Or do I need to consider Rwanda, for instance? Do I need to consider Kenya, for instance, where I can develop my innovative ideas and just roll on with that?
Well, how can I describe innovation space in Tanzania? It's evolving. Let me put it that way, right? We are not where we were in 2014, because that's when I started working into this space. So we are far from there. And there are so many indicators you can look at, right? You can look at the number of startups, so there are some people that kind of indicate towards that. You can look at the players who are coming into the space who wants to do something to help, whether it's from different partners, private sector, the corporates that are starting like some of their in-house kind of accelerators, incubators, whether it's the government that is creating some of the funds to be able to support SMEs and all that. So it's evolving. Or the number of innovation hubs that I've seen the day since then. When we started in 2014, I think we had only 3 innovation hubs. Now we are talking about 60 and above. So there are all indicators that show that okay, it's evolving, it's growing.
Yeah.
All right. Is it the best space for every young and innovative minds to be able to set up? So you would say it's evolving, and so I mean there are so many factors that have to be considered. One, we have to reach a point where we agree that innovation has no borders. So if you come up with a brilliant idea, startups, you feel like, okay, maybe Tanzania market is not enough for you to flourish, you should be allowed to venture out, which is not a problem at all to me, because as long as, right now even talking about, we look at EAC now, it's beyond, we look at this Africa continental free trade area. So, I mean, the world is actually becoming even better for innovators and startup founders. So we shouldn't just look at Tanzania. But what I always say is, we shouldn't, founders shouldn't feel compelled to go out just because they cannot be accommodated in Tanzania. If you get what I'm saying. They should be they should be looking at going out because there are expansion opportunities. It's about market expansion, but not because the environment back home could not accommodate them. So that's what we need to work on. Right.
And I want Joe, on this particular juncture, to cite a very vivid example. Tanzania founded and delighted. I look at this young man and I'm like, it's great that we have people like Fernandez coming from Tanzania, the founder of Nala.
Yeah.
Fernandez, in a meeting that you and me participated, explicitly said he could not be accommodated. Now, accommodation is not the buildings, it's the environment. Was not too conducive for him to nurture the innovative idea that he has. And this idea has crossed not only Tanzania, not only Africa, but has gone beyond Africa.
Yeah.
Now, when you say they shouldn't be compelled, yet we have a case on our hands that we both know that really pushed beyond. And when you push on innovative ideas, exactly you're talking on to the jobs that are going to be missed from being created in your country. You're talking about the revenues, etc., etc., etc. Of what essence should I remain back if the environment does not hold me, does not nurture me to grow, does not provide for me that ecosystem that I'm able to grow, network, and just.
Yeah, I think that's a very good example you're giving that should act more as a wake-up call for us and also for the policy makers for Tanzania. Nala is one case, but there are probably several more. And you could say that it's a bit unfortunate that there are some of the brilliant ideas that come and you're like, okay, maybe they came at the wrong time in Tanzania, that the country wasn't ready for them. So you could probably the Nala idea was like one of such kind of ideas that they came at the time where probably the policy environment wasn't ready for them. And sometimes we tend to learn with we are not ready for this, but probably we can learn through the process. But that shouldn't stop the entrepreneur or the startup founder to wait until when we are ready.
But
if
you
there
know,
are
you know,
markets,
Joe,
if there
what
are markets
does-
that are ready for that, yes,
Yeah,
go start
but-
and then you can always come back, which is actually what's happening.
What does the word wait mean? That you have an idea, but the market is not ready for you, so you wait.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Do my
You should
deals
not-
also wait?
That's what I'm saying. You should not wait until the market is ready for you, like the domestic market is ready for you. If there are other markets that actually are ready to accommodate you, and that's actually what Nala did, right? They went where the market was ready for them at that particular time. But what they are doing, they kept on expanding. Now they have gotten a license from Tanzania for the ability to actually operate in Tanzania. So it would have been better if they had started from here, if we were ready to accommodate them and actually supported them, so they can actually grow organically from home and then expand going elsewhere. But unfortunately, it happened the other way around. So it's actually always a good opportunity to learn. And if you, I don't know if you have read the story of, let me use M-Pesa, but basically mobile money in East Africa, the M-Pesa was the premier, right? When M-Pesa started in Kenya, there was no policy to be able to accommodate it. Right? What they did is like, okay, do we have any kind of policy we can bend a little bit to actually accommodate for you to grow? The rest of it is history. The same thing happened in Tanzania. It started when there was no policy whatsoever, right? So when something like that happens, there's a great idea, but you cannot accommodate in the current existing policy environment. Policymakers have two choices. They can say, okay, fine, we cannot accommodate, so we're not going to do it until we have a policy, right? But progressive policymakers, what they do is like, okay, you know what? Let's see how we can accommodate. Now we even have a word for it. We have policy sandboxes, right? Then there was no such word in Tanzania. It's like, let's accommodate you and learn through the process, and later on we can actually develop a policy around it. And we're lucky. Then we had a very progressive central bank governor, Professor Ndulu, and that's what happened.
Right.
Now we see what mobile money has actually done, like to revolutionize the whole financial industry. Because then even the banks were not ready for it, because they felt, okay, this now is coming to eat into our cake. So, and they were not ready to share it. But at the end of the day, when you get, that's what innovation does. It actually destabilizes everything. It kind of, revolutionize it. And, it's, that's what you come in just to, what do you call it? It's not distracting, but it's basically that's what it does. So whether you like it or not, you're either on board or you're going to become a victim of it. So that's now we see how the mobile money even has revolutionized everything, even the way we live. So that kind of, response to any kind of business idea which the policy government is not ready for. So if you meet progressive policies or policy makers, they respond differently depending on how they understand it.
You are watching and listening to Austin Makani with What Matters podcast, and we're looking onto the innovation space here in Tanzania, and John Manirakiza, the brain that hides behind the skull, allow me to say that for lack of a better word, into the innovation space is with me, and we're looking onto the innovation space, innovation spectrum in Tanzania. Joe, allow me to ask. Innovation has continued here in Tanzania to attract certain kind of people who know certain kind of people who know certain kind of people. Is this true?
It depends on how you look at it. It could have some truth in it.
Okay.
Right? You wanted to elaborate.
I wanted to make it easier for you,
Yes,
Joe.
yes.
We hardly hear of innovative ideas coming from rural Tanzania, for instance, from the outskirts, from peripherals completely. And most of these innovations that you hear of are probably people went to certain schools in certain cities, and they got exposed to certain people who are now able to do certain things onto those ideas. Now, I want to know from you, is innovation biased?
Is innovation biased? That's a big question. But I like it though. I have never thought about using the word bias when talking about innovation. I think it's something to think about. But if I take the angle through which you explained it, we could say so, right? I think for a very long time, we have forgotten about grassroots innovations or grassroots innovators. But that also depends on how innovation actually get to be introduced in a certain space, right? Most of the cases we look at those that come from those who have gone to school, right? But for a very long time, rural societies have had ways of solving their own challenges in more innovative ways. That we haven't developed the habit of documenting those, right? I think one country which is doing so and pushing grassroots innovations, I think India, they even have a word for it, Jugaad, which is like some kind of best practice to support grassroots innovation, which actually solve the grassroots level kind of challenges. And even in Tanzania, I think there's a kind of a movement to kind of start supporting those. You might recall from COSTECH when they started the Makisatu, the Mashindano ya Kitaifa ya Sayansi Teknolojia. They even have a guideline of on supporting innovations and they call it indigenous knowledge. So there is that kind of, I think we need to do more in terms of documenting those and also supporting those. But it's there, so the only way that actors within the innovation space, they tend to be mostly in urban centers and tend to be mostly people who are coming to school from school. But there should be more efforts into documenting, also supporting the grassroots innovations.
There should be more efforts. So let me take you on a lighter note. Different. Let's now just come back here. 2 glasses of water in front of us. If you had the opportunity, Joe, to have 3 people for coffee, those people could be dead or alive today, who would they be and why?
From Tanzania or
anywhere. The list is endless. You could probably want to have coffee with Jesus. You know.
I'm not sure he drank coffee when he was alive. Was there coffee? But you're more a better Christian than I am.
There was more wine.
There's wine.
There's prevalence of wine, but I'm sure there was tea then. We had tea then.
In Israel.
They drank tea.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't there, so I'm not sure. If 3 people I would love to have coffee with, definitely my mom. I didn't have a chance. By the time I was finishing university and then reading out, she was born when she was so young. So definitely that one.
God bless us all.
Yeah. Number 2. How about the president?
Which one?
We have one president.
Oh. Of which country?
Of Tanzania.
Oh, the president of Tanzania. There are more than 101 countries in the world.
Yeah.
Yes.
Number 3, let me go out.
Why would you want to have coffee with Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan?
You know what? I think there's so much that has changed right now in the past 3 years. So much is having to deal with kind of, drive some of the reforms and everything. Is everything going right? No. But is there a lot that actually I've seen changing in the past 3 years, which is very positive? Definitely, yes. So I would actually like to ask her what she thinks and, and what's her perspective in the coming 10, 15 years for Tanzania.
Mm-hmm.
So, just like
no
so yeah, definitely. And the third one, so far I've just talked about women.
I thought you would not notice that.
Yeah, so we
yes.
just talked about women.
We live in a world.
On the global stage, though.
Yes.
There is this guy that it depends on how you talk about him. Bill Gates.
Okay.
For some people, it's a controversial figure. For others, a hero, especially within the tech innovation space and all that. If I got a chance, it's aspiration, right? So
right,
it's not
right.
Yeah, definitely that one.
Okay. And what would the discussion be around?
Basically, his motivation, although he has documented a lot of his motivation behind what he does, there is actually this podcast of his right now. It's called Unconfuse Me, right? Really powerful because it talks about so many things and it's like, okay, I would actually like to how his mind
Right.
works. It's really fascinating how this guy works and how he thinks. Yeah.
Joe, we're running towards the very end of this podcast, Austin McCartney is What Matters. And probably my very final question would be to you. What is your call to the young people, young innovative ideas, young minds that are craving to be out there to solve the problems that the world faces today? I'm coming from a meeting up country whereby we met a pool of doctors and specialists in the medical sector. And I'm like, if we are having more than 1,200 doctors in one room, why do we still have pretty pertinent medical challenges in the country? So the people out there, the young people out there with brilliant ideas that would just come out and address the socio-economic or political, cultural challenges that we face today. What is your call to them, Joe?
Man, something to know. According to the demographics that is for Tanzania right now, over 77% of the country's population is under 35 years old. Right? Which means this country is young. Right? But how many people out of those that youth are actually engaged in shaping the future of this country? So we have the minority trying to shape the future of the country, which they are not going to see. Right? So which means young people should be able to like, you know what, this is actually, we are the ones who are going to be there in the next 30, 40, 50 years. So they need to be engaged, right? And they need to claim the space. And need to take advantage of any kind of opportunities presented to them to be able to engage. So that's something that I would like. It doesn't matter which kind of segment of life you're coming from.
Right.
And that's the kind of challenge that also we throw to, not the government talks about it every day, but even your partner, the corporate sector, and it was behind the same, against that kind of thinking that, for instance, I'm going to talk about the agents I'm working for, UNDP, now had to even to design a whole portfolio focusing on youth. We call it Youth Catalyst Portfolio. Because you cannot talk about doing development if you are not addressing challenges or taking advantage of opportunities which affect the majority of the countries that we serve. So what I would say to young people, they need to build a country to their own, because some of us, we don't have that many years left, right?
You don't have, Joe.
Austin,
you don't have.
Austin, you're not young. You're in Tanzania. We've tried to push the youth age up to 35, but young people kind of below that. 30, and we put it politically, you put it at 35, that's fine. Nowadays, you say up to 55 is still young. You remember when you had one political candidate for presidential candidate, so we say, yeah, it's a young person, but how old was he then? Anyway, that's beside. But what I'm saying is, this country belongs to the young people. It's up to them to shape it the way it should be. We are now faced with a lot of opportunities which come with challenges. We're talking about artificial intelligence. We're talking about all these emerging kind of technological opportunities. If we're not prepared for them, then I'm not sure what's going to become of our kids and grandkids. So we need to have to shape it.
Joe, you are an avid reader, I believe, and I know you love reading books as much as I do. Maybe final parting statement from you is the book that you read that you wish any person watching and listening to this podcast right now to get access to it.
Oh, do I still have enough time to read as I used to? I'm not sure. There is a book I'm currently reading. It's called Incentives and the Mixed Signaling.
Okay.
Right? So what it's kind of talking about is, it kind of looks at why do people do what they do or act in the way they act? Or how can people be pushed to act in a certain way? Like incentives is key. It doesn't matter how you look at it, or whether it's monetary, whether it's, so that's the, I'm loving it at the moment. So it's a really nice book. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Innovation is doing something differently. Innovation is doing something new. Innovation is actually tackling, addressing challenges so that you get a solution, but again, the solution has to be sustainable. If it takes you back to how you used to do what you used to do, then that is just an idea. And this is what I've gathered from our lengthy discussion with George. Thank you so much for your time. We need to, as you rightly said, it's the country for young people. You are not in that space, I'm still in that space. We need to nurture as many young people as possible. We need to just show them the path to go. Unfortunately, it's not necessarily shown in schools, not in the formal education systems, but you and me, with the little exposure that we have, can take 2 or 3 people every day and just talk sense onto them, show them what books to read, show them what directions to take, and I believe they will now be the heirs of the world they want to see in the generation to come. Thank you so much. Innovation Space in Tanzania, and this is Austin Makani with What Matters Podcast, and I thank you, my dear viewer and listener, for watching and listening to Austin Makani with What Matters Podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode.